Walk into any supermarket in a megacity and you'll see an overwhelming display of food. Aisles stacked high with neatly packaged produce, frozen meals, and ultra processed goods from all corners of the world. At first glance, it seems like we've mastered food access. But step back and a different picture emerges. Despite this illusion of abundance, urban dwellers are more disconnected from real food than ever before. The flavors of fresh, nutrient-rich food have been replaced with hyper-processed, chemically engineered imitations. We have access, but no real ownership of our food. This, this disconnect is not an accident. It's the result of a system that has reshaped the way we eat, live, and interact with nature. For most of human history, food was an intimate, communal experience. People grew their own produce, traded with local farmers, and cooked meals rooted in seasonality. The Industrial Revolution, followed by the rise of megacities, fractured this connection. As urban populations soared, food systems transformed to prioritize efficiency over nutrition, long shelf life over freshness, and global supply chains over local resilience. This shift led to three critical disruptions. Geographical displacement is the first one. Food is now grown far from where it's consumed. The average meal in a city has traveled thousands of miles before reaching a plate, losing its nutritional density or correctness along the way. There's been a cultural displacement. Traditional diets tied to specific lands have been eroded, replaced with mass-produced, globally standardized food. Then there's biological displacement. Our microbiomes, once nourished by local, diverse, and fresh food, are now bombarded with preservatives, synthetic additives, and sterilized food devoid of all life. The result is a generation that consumes more food than ever, but is nutritionally starved, metabolically weakened, and emotionally detached from what they eat. This severed relationship with food isn't just a logistical issue, it has profound consequences on minds and bodies. Studies show that people who grow or harvest their own food develop a deeper appreciation for what they eat, leading to healthier eating habits and stronger metabolic resilience. Conversely, urban dwellers, raised in a world where food comes from a shelf rather than the soil, suffer from nutritional blindness, which is a detachment from food quality that leads to an inability to distinguish between real nourishment and artificial sustenance. We also suffer from metabolic disruptions. The rise of ultra-processed food correlates with skyrocketing obesity, diabetes, and gut disorders. And we're experiencing mental fog and emotional disconnection. Processed diets rich in synthetic additives disrupt brain chemistry, weakening cognitive function and emotional stability. There's a reason why farm-to-table meals taste better, not just in terms of flavor, but in how they make you feel. The body craves living food. The further we move from it, the weaker we become. The urban food landscape isn't just a byproduct of modernization, it's controlled design. Megacities were not built for food sovereignty, but for food dependency. The very structure of these cities makes it difficult to access truly fresh, locally grown food. Industrial food corporations benefit from this design where urbanites rely on massive supply chains to feed themselves. Cities have normalized this convenience culture, quick meals over quality, fast food over slow nourishment. This is a disconnection from soil. High-rise living means no land, no direct access to growing. The privatization of food knowledge has also emerged, where most people no longer even know how to grow, preserve, or source nutrient-dense food. This model was not inevitable, it was engineered. Just as food production has been consolidated into fewer hands, urban planning has reinforced a population of passive consumers rather than empowered growers. Despite this bleak picture, solutions are emerging. The key is to reverse the displacement geographically, culturally, and biologically. This doesn't mean abandoning cities, not at all. I don't think this is a trend that we can stop. But rather we must seek to perhaps redesign urban food systems and other systems that partner with food from the inside out. I think this is how we start. Integrating decentralized food hubs is probably the first step. Small-scale urban farms, rooftop gardens, and indoor growing systems must become the norm, not the exception. Reclaiming public and private spaces for food growing, where we transform unused urban land into community-led food growing zones, is another step. And then education, educating us, educating our children for food sovereignty, even ourselves, teaching people, especially the children, how to grow, cook, and preserve real food. We also want to start shortening the supply chains, prioritizing local, although it's not just local, it has to be local organic over global, fresh over processed, and community driven over corporate controlled food systems. We need cities designed for nourishment, not just resilience, not just residence. Modgarden is part of this shift, bringing food back into urban spaces, turning passive eaters into active participants in their sustenance. The great irony of modern cities is that we're built on the premise of progress, yet they've left behind people that are more dependent and more malnourished than ever before. But what has been broken can be repaired. We are at a crossroads. Do we continue down the path of industrial dependency, or do we reclaim our relationship with food, integrating it back into our lives, our cities, and our bodies? The answer isn't in some distant utopian future. It's in the small, tangible shifts happening right now. A restaurant growing its own microgreens, a high-rise with a communal food growing floor, a family replacing a convenient meal with something they grew themselves. Urban food sovereignty isn't an impossible dream. It's simply something that's forgotten. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, is a quote attributed or misattributed perhaps to Hippocrates. It's time to remember.